In a world dominated by technology, any country that has the edge on technological surveillance can deal with NHS records, can access NHS records, collect DNA samples, access facial recognition, know where we live. These people are going to have, or these countries are going to have a huge advantage. And this information is not so difficult to get hold of, unless, of course, you're hiding behind a Nokia 3200. And but this in Chinese espionage, this is known as the world of magic weapons. And the scandal which has emerged in the last few days is about a sprawling web of espionage, influence operations, financial dealings, and a complex and opaque mechanism used by states like China to infiltrate foreign institutions, but not just China. I would suggest we need to be very careful about what Russia knows also, and we shouldn't stop there. This should be a wake-up call for our control of the web, of these extraordinary systems that run and rule our lives. And if you go back to the first screams of MI5 back in 2022, when we were first warned that Christine Lee, for example, was an agent of influence, and but nobody really listened. And then we suddenly have Tengbo Yang. We suddenly have a member of the Russian elite whose father was a spy master in the House of Lords. It is extraordinary the levels of society that foreign nations are able to access. Is not necessarily a matter of the fact that these people are doing something illegal or inappropriate or harmful to us. It's the fact that they are there. And Tengbo Yang, age 6, has not been accused of any crime. He's simply accused of being far more than a low-level operative of the United Front Work Department, the UFWD, the CCP's soft power arm. Not a crime. His extensive network, including British political and business elites, as well as Prince Andrew, suggests he operates at a much higher level, likely linked to the Ministry of State Security, the MSS, or the International Liaison Department. And his educational and business background, coupled with his connections to high-ranking Chinese officials, paints the picture of a strategic agent with dual roles, cultivating influence and gathering intelligence. Now, I've been speaking to people who have met Yang Tengbo. One of them at a defence forum in Berkeley Square in 2012, when he was actually warned away and ended up talking to the Duke of Westminster's Taiwan friend. Let's say friend, and you think there's something odd going on here, because these are the walkways of power, and they are quite literally what are described as China's magic weapons, as defined by President Xi. They're multifaceted tools of statecraft blending espionage, influence, and coercion, and they include the soft power tools operating through charity organisations, cultural forums, business councils like the 48 Group. And individuals like Christine Lee leverage these networks for influence, often by funding politicians like Barry Gardner, Ed Davey. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that, but allegedly. Then there are the legal and financial magic weapons, which are a little bit darker. The bribes, the blackmail, the legal actions, Lee's threats against critics like Brendan Kavanagh, the piano player, are used to silence dissent and shape public narrative. There's the financial shell companies like Yang's Hampton Group that mask high-value transactions and obscure the true source of funds. Then there are even darker magic weapons, like the technological magic weapons, the exploitation of facial recognition, mobile data, and platforms like TikTok to monitor and influence individuals globally. There are the espionage tools, the honey traps, and targeted infiltration of elite circles. Maybe that's where Yang's focus lies on Prince Andrew. But what is being cited here is exactly what is done in other countries in their espionage dealings. And this, as I say, should be a wake-up call for Britain that has been too relaxed and too laid back about the threats that exist. If the threats are presented on the screen in fiction as James Bond, they are already there in fact. Yang's business dealings highlight the financial underpinnings of espionage in exactly the same way as Christine Lee's law firm became legal services for the Chinese embassy in London. Her immigration company was used as a network for the Chinese embassy. If the Chinese embassy needed information in the country, they could use her company. And they were willing to supply her company with all the permission for visas and documentation. But if she was doing this, there must have been countless others in Russia and other countries who are doing the same thing. And why would we know about it? We think this is a pleasant interaction, and it is for the most part. Spying is about collecting information, and in the end, most people, most of the people who are spying don't even know what that information is going to be used for. It's not fundamentally pernicious. It's simply gathering information and then putting it all together and using it. Now, that might be pernicious. But we allow so much access to our information, to our national life. We have set ourselves up to be exposed. The 48 Club includes members such as Tony Blair, Jack Straw, Alex Salmond, Peter Mandelson, even Ken Livingstone. It's and Yang Tengbo is an honorary member of it. There was supposed to be a book about Chinese influence and the magic weapons called Hidden Hand by Clive Hamilton from Australia, and that was the subject of a legal case to stop it being published. And the movement of people around this ring of this sphincter of suspicion is simply astonishing. And many of them don't know that they're being milked for information. Why would they know? Why would they know? They're not necessarily. Anything which comes out is gathered. We have computers. We can fill computers with useless information. If one bit of that information is useful, it justifies all the myriad pages of bilge. And that is the problem. When you go back to Yang's business dealings, which highlight the financial underpinnings of his alleged espionage, his companies with assets in the millions and suspiciously high debts, it's suggested they serve dual purposes. On the one hand, to facilitate large-scale investments to curry favour with UK elites, and on the other, to act as financial conduits for CCP operations. His loans from unknown sources imply covert funding tied to intelligence operations, possibly funneled through state-owned entities in China. And all of this emerging from his relationship with Gordonstoun School and his offer to develop 5 schools in China as outreach centres, this is a mere symptom of a larger operation. You can think of four issues. The diplomatic tensions that result from this. The case complicates Keir Starmer's attempts to reset UK-China relations, especially after his recent meeting with President Xi, which seemed, by all intents and purposes, to be very positive. But the national security repercussions, as MI6 warns about infiltration and the vulnerability of UK institutions and UK people. Cases like Christine Lee's, how she apparently gave Ed Davis, the Lib Dem leader, £5,000 in 2013. She donated £180,000 to Barry Gardiner, the Labour MP for employment, for 2 assistants, and one of them was her son. Nothing was done, nothing was said, nothing criminal was actually executed. But the infiltration was effective, was it not? Maybe if we were going to set Craig, what's his name, James Bond, onto this, he would do the same thing. But the Chinese state is very good at it, and we are very vulnerable and very exposed. And the financial and the legal influence of individuals like Christine Lee can persist for years before detection. The third point, these magic weapons breed public distrust in political systems. The exposure of cross-party links to CCP influence raises questions about transparency and particularly about integrity in British politics. All you have to do is look at the outpouring of Russian trolling on YouTube, on the internet, not necessarily with any great purpose, but simply to question the reality of our systems. That does its job. The fourth point, the broader strategic shifts. The UK may be poised to align more with the US in viewing China as not merely as a trade partner, but as a strategic adversary, heightening security, heightening scrutiny of Chinese investments and activities. And this, I think, would be a bad thing. We need to be reaching out the handshake of friendship. Despite all the allegations, we need to be bigger than this. This isn't about what China has done wrong, it's what we have done wrong, isn't it? As I say, no one has been arrested. We are simply exposed. We are simply looking foolish. And Yang Tengbo's likely next move is to disappear from the public eye, possibly retreating to China, where he can continue his activities under different guises. His financial empire will likely dissolve or reconstitute in ways that are harder to trace. And meanwhile, the UK government must contend with a potential crackdown on CCP-affiliated networks, stricter scrutiny of Chinese investments and visas, increased pressure to secure critical data systems, including NHS records and phone records. But there is another aspect to this, and that is that the sort of people who are attracted into this cobweb are, broadly speaking, bullies. And all you have to do is to go back to that piano playing scene where the video, where the propaganda piece seemed to be made in the station while Brendan Kavanagh was playing his piano. And Christine Lee and another lady who keeps going up to Christine Lee, she's called Lui Meng Jing, and And there's this line, "Don't touch her," which is such a shocking bark of authority and so out of place from in the moment. Don't touch her. Newton Lang was there screaming at the top of his voice, "Don't touch her," so much so that he lost his job at the Financial Times. It's understandable that a country wants good things to be said about it. But the soft spy magic weapons operations attract people who are perhaps not the best in the bunch. And there's 4 major spy departments that we know of. The MSS, the Ministry of State Security, usually the top spies. The United Front Work Department, so middle class. The United Liaison Department of the CCP, and the Joint Staff of the Central Military Commission. And what emerges from one country is already in another. So while our attention is perhaps turned at the moment to H6, we should perhaps wonder, who else should we be looking at? My recommendation is we shouldn't really be looking at any of these people. We should be looking at ourselves and ask ourselves, why are we so vulnerable? Why are we such an easy target? This fear of others is about our own insecurity. And this saga isn't an isolated event, but part of a global contest where magic weapons can reshape the rules of engagement. It's a stark reminder that even seemingly benign interactions with authoritarian regimes can have profound and far-reaching consequences. And we need to be on our guard. We need to be more careful. We need to be more proactive. We need to reach out with friendship rather than suspicion. The suspicion doesn't need to be there if our systems are secure. Our systems are not secure. Our systems are loaded with error and are controlled by fools. We are open to manipulation.